Well, hello there, caregivers, and welcome to today's live session of Your Weekly Dose, where we are going to be talking about grief. The last couple of weeks we've been working with the early caregiver, the one who is just noticing changes in their loved one, who is just going through the diagnoses, taking their person to the doctor, talking about some changes that they're noticing, or maybe you're noticing these changes in yourself. But today I want to talk about grief. And while the framework that I'm going to talk with you about applies to the wide range of the caregiver and your caregiving experience, we're going to specifically focus on the early caregiver, that caregiver that's early in the journey with their person who they're noticing cognitive changes with, because I know that some of the things that I'm going to bring up and mention often are harder to do later, but those things that you can incorporate and take away from today, I hope that you do. So let's get started. First and foremost, compassion for yourself. Having compassion for yourself, because grief during any stage of dementia is a natural response to the challenge that you're facing. It's tough. It's a tough moment when you least expect something to change in your life and you yourself are changing or your person is changing, and maybe you're getting ready for like the retirement years, those golden years, and you had this big plan to retire and to travel the world together, and suddenly now your days are filled with doctor's appointments and documenting and running here and running there, and your person's forgetting this or forgetting that. So it's a normal emotion to experience grief. And that grief may look different for everybody, because if you are a child and you're taking care of your parent, that may be the grief of losing your parent and now having to act in the parent role. So there's a little bit of role reversal there. You may be of the sandwich generation where you're taking care of your children along with taking care of your parent. And so you may grieve the loss of being able to spend as much quality time with your children. But what I need you to remember here is that these feelings are okay, and that you need to recognize and accept your emotions, that these are emotions that are okay. In these early stages, when you're still kind of having a little bit of time to prioritize self-care, make sure that you start to incorporate self-care very early on, because those activities that you do enjoy and that you can do now, hopefully because you make it a habit and you make it part of your routine, you can continue to do those things a little bit later when your person is a little bit more advanced or has become more advanced, by building them into your daily routine. Hopefully you don't lose yourself, lose your priorities in the shuffle and in the mix, because taking care of you is very important. We know studies have shown that I think it's like 48% of caregivers don't often take care of their own medical needs or their own self-care needs when they're caring for someone that they love. Definitely seek support from your family, from your friends, or a support group. We have a great support group that we're running right here on Facebook, where there's lots of caregivers who come in there with problems or challenges or issues, or even solutions to problems that they have found that they'll post in the group that have helped them. Just keep in mind, what works for one person isn't going to work for everybody, because we have a history behind us as a person. But finding those support groups to help you deal with that grief, with that loss, there are people there who are going through the same thing that you are. Open communication. Communication, in my opinion, is the key to navigating your grief. Sharing your feelings, your concerns, and grief with people that you trust, knowing that you're not alone in this journey. Open dialogue with your person with dementia open dialogue with your family and friends as your person or even yourself is changing. Your job and your work environment, your coworkers, making sure that you have open dialogue with them. That's really super important. Talk openly in support groups. Don't hesitate if you have a need. Don't feel selfish that you're expressing your needs, because you do have needs during this time as well. You do have a lot of high emotions at this time as well, and expressing those is okay. And make sure to encourage open conversation with your loved one. Depending on how quickly your person started this journey with dementia, obviously somebody who has slow cognitive changes is going to be much different than somebody who has a stroke. A stroke, that might take away part of their ability to speak or interpret what you're saying. But make sure that when you're having conversation with your person, that you keep it at a level that you notice that they're not getting heightened or very emotional as well. So open conversation with your family, with your loved one. Practical coping strategies. Let's talk about this for a second, because these are the tools that can empower you to, manage your emotions effectively. If you can incorporate these strategies into your daily routines, you might find comfort during these really hard times. Mindfulness. Mindfulness has become really a big thing since we had COVID, right? A lot of people doing meditation, a lot of people doing mind work. So practicing mindful techniques, you can go onto YouTube, type in the word mindfulness techniques, and there will probably be thousands of different video shorts that come up that can help guide you through those. Journaling. This is a big one for me. Every morning before my feet have touched the ground, I'm grabbing my journal and I'm writing in my journal. If I don't do it then, I won't do it later, because the day is going to get ahead of me and take away my time. So I make journaling a priority, my 3 goals, what I plan to do for the day. And then usually right before I go to bed, I will journal my accomplishments, those things that I still need to get done, and how I generally felt about the day. So journal your thoughts, journal your feelings during this time, and journal maybe even how you feel toward your loved one, or emotions or times that you have with your loved one. And you can look back on these times and talk with them to your loved one. Education and empowerment. I've always said knowledge is power. So please educate yourself about grief and its stages. One of my favorite nursing theorists in nursing school was Kubler-Ross. If you are not familiar with Kubler-Ross and her stages of grief, she basically says that it's a cycle and you have to pass through all of these stages of grief. I sort of feel like I do with dementia. I sort of feel like it's a river. I feel like you can wake up in the morning and you can be in one area or one stage, and it can sort of transpire as your day transpires. Your grief can either change from grief of loss to grief of loss of yourself. But the theory behind getting through your grief is passing through all of the stages. So if you're not familiar with Kubler-Ross, please drop it in the comments below, and I can make sure to post a good site where you can go and you can learn about the stages of Kubler-Ross. But learn about those stages, understand the uniqueness of grieving when in dementia care, because it is a very different type of care, different than caring for your child or caring for just a sick loved one. Make sure that you're staying informed and preparing for your caregiver journey. The more you know about dementia and the different types of dementia or the different pathologies behind dementia, the better you will be prepared to care for your loved one. So for the past couple of weeks, we've talked about grief, we've talked about anxiety, we've talked about, the diagnoses and the routine tests that you might have and how to have success in your medical visit. So next week, I'd love for you to join me. We're going to start to talk about your role as the caregiver, the things that you might need to start preparing for in your journey as a caregiver. What things that you might not have thought about that you need to start thinking about a little bit ahead of time so that you're not thinking about them in crisis mode. If you have any thoughts on this, or if there's something that you'd like to touch upon, please drop it in the comments below. I will drop the link to our group, and I hope to see you there. Have a great week.